Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back, or welcome if you've never been here before. Today I want to fill you in on my August reading. Now I'm not sure if this is going to be a mid-month video or a recent reads video. You'll know by the title, but I do plan on filling you in on all of my thoughts in terms of everything that I'm picking up this month. And so I want to come to you fresh off of the page from 2 or 3 books at a time. I will be doing these in clips, and maybe when I get to like 20, we'll cap it off there. So I will say that in my wrap-ups, I think I need to refresh, since I failed to give you one last month, is that I don't talk about the books that I've read in my vlogs, just because I have a tendency to go in and I think I've covered them extensively there. So at the beginning of this month, I started out with the Romance Takeover Readathon Light versus Dark edition, which was a lot of fun. I will throw my vlog up. There were 7 reads that I read within that vlog, and so I'm gonna fill you in on my last 3. Because after that readathon, I immediately jumped in to Crowned by Lilith Vincent. I had to know what was gonna happen after the pageant and that cliffhanger, okay? I will say, because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that's reading this for Smut Club. That's run by Cheyenne, the Tall Book Girl, and McKay from Oh Hey It's McKay. So if you're reading the pageant for that and you feel compelled to continue like I did, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I will say where that book is really a captive, this one feels like the chase. Because when we meet Lilia in the pageant, she is in hiding. She is on the run from her, cruel mafia boss of a father who wasn't doting. He really used her room as a bartering tool to amass power. So in this book, she's really back to her old tricks, except there's something that's grounding her as she's being hunted by the heroes. And what I love about Lilia is that she is a survivor, okay? She's not struck by Stockholm Syndrome. Feelings or not, she's not going to let another powerful man dictate where her life is going to go. And so she really has to be cornered in order to fall for all of them. And she's cornered in a different way in this book, because now they're using their machinations to care for her. And I just liked this one so much more than the last, because I got the romance beats and development that I was looking for. There's a lot more steam, and that's important because the steam within the pageant was all non-consensual or dubious, and here it's really used to bring them together. Now, I normally search for sword crossing when it comes to reverse harems. I want to feel like the heroes within the reverse harems have their own undeniable connection because of my affinity for polyamorous romances. But here, there is no sword crossing. However, I really enjoyed the sort of emotional shorthand between the heroes. It felt like more than a packhand and his 2 right-hand men, right? Like they survive together, as well as they all have a similar wound when it comes to women. And as we're getting their backstories, I learned how they really nurse that within all of them, or each other rather. And I just enjoyed that about them. They felt like a team, and I really bought their connection as heroes that was outside of their obsession and need of the heroine. And that is also what I really liked about this. We got to see their backstories. They weren't just told to us. And I'm just kind of amazed at where they landed within this romance, because I bought their love. I bought their HEA. I loved, the theme of sort of family in this book. Found, created, blended. I definitely liked this better than the first one, and it kind of makes me want to re-rate the pageant, especially just after the excitement of finishing that book. I probably rate it differently, but I will say that Crowned, I'm gonna rate a 4. It was definitely better than the last book. It definitely feels like a complete duet, and that it needed to be 2 books as well. And so this is going to be a dark, Mafia reverse harem that I recommend. I had a really good time with it, okay? Then I read Liberation by M.M Wakeford. This was a debut novella where the mindset centered around sexuality and sensuality was just next level. I absolutely loved this. This follows Carter, and he owns a nightclub and a sex club with his two dearest friends. I mean, the connection and knowing between them is really what helps you understand why he's feeling somewhat blocked when it comes to letting someone in romantically, because his life has been full of love. There are polyamorous scenes within this book and absolutely no cheating. The polyamorous scenes really showcase the kind of history that this friend group has, because they are incredibly free, immensely supportive in all areas of his life, including the steam. Yet the steamy times between Carter, Emilio, and Liv within the past never felt romantic. It always just felt like, wow, like a deeper evolution and inner knowing of themselves and of their connection as friends. It's that like next level of like nod and appreciation and vulnerability and sharing between them. Like that's the kind of mindset that we're dealing with. And now at the beginning of this book, his friends are sort of like, you know, charting down that next phase of development within their lives, and the steam between all of them has dwindled. And Carter is kind of wrestling with what's missing within his life, being that he's always had a cheerleader of his dreams. He's always had the emotional support and a great sex life because of the kind of relationships that he's fostered with his friends. And so I loved how much ground is covered in such a short amount of pages in this book. All of these backstories and really what's like plaguing him in terms of what's missing within his life is all set up within the first chapter. And we're given this meet cute that really felt sweet and fun, almost one of those slow-mo New York minute type of moments that I will leave you to read, but I absolutely loved the meet cute within this. Hannah, I loved as well. She's Palestinian. She is from London and she is in town to study for her master's. She comes from a very strict but loving Muslim family that was fearful of her being so far away and in the States. And the mechanics for her being able to be there studying was a lot. And that comes later after as her and Carter really fall into one another. But what I loved about this is that they come from different cultural backgrounds, life and sexual experiences, and yet there's this ease and comfort and immense chemistry between them. And that is what their romance is about, falling despite their differences, and really Hannah truly becoming liberated, while Carter is slowly doling out information about himself. And as she's falling, she's placing that, you know, in juxtaposition to what her family would want for herself. And I just absolutely loved this novella. It really surprised me, okay? Like I said, just the mindset about sensuality and sexuality and liberation and, you know, what's repressive and also Carter is a very possessive hero that's ready to lock it down, okay? It felt like a whirlwind, not insta-lovey. You just have to read it, but I rated this 5 stars. This is a 5-star novella for me. I absolutely loved it, okay? Next, I read Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. This is my first H.D. Carlton, which is funny because I almost read the cat and mouse duet during my author's bio roulette video. That's just something that I do when I'm kind of stuck. I feel like if I know more about an author, I'm going to be more compelled to actually pick up their work. And in that video, H.D. Carlton's bio was up against Amara Ray's, and I just find it funny because now the Immortal Coven series is like one of my favorites. But anyway, I'm glad this is my first from her, and how do I freaking describe Enzo? Oh my gosh. I feel like I reach for, you know, the descriptor of like prickly or simply grump when I'm talking about characters like him. But he gives me the vibes of more surly, big dick energy. Okay? That's Enzo. Okay? Like, I'm not at all impressed, although you are, and I don't have the patience for you to keep up type of vibe. That's him. And Sawyer is really feigning sunshine in order to survive and to combat her own trauma. And at the beginning of this book, she's on the run. What from, I did not know. And so it took me some time to really get into this because the beginning felt slow. You know, she's got a very loud voice and she's a bit quirky. And so I was trying to figure out her character and just let the author set things up and get used to her writing. But we learn that Sawyer's means of survival is identity theft, and the way that she gets to her Mark's information is after sleeping with them. And so she has a very interesting meet cute with Enzo at a bar where he can't at all be bothered, but he's also very passionate about his profession of marine biology and knowledgeable about his expertise of sharks, and that leads to a very steamy one night stand and is quickly followed up by what I'm gonna call a revenge scene of expertise, okay? An inventive use of breath play. It is at that point that this book picked up for me because it catapults us into the forced proximity element where they are shipwrecked and stranded on this island only inhabited by a very lonely and strange character that used to man the out of commissioned lighthouse. And so I will say there are a lot of twists and turns in this book, some of which I called out very early. I was like DMing Jen. I'm such a dork. I'm like, I know a lot about lighthouses and this isn't adding up. I don't think that you need to come in with any background knowledge of lighthouses to kind of pick up that there's something nefarious going on. But what got me about this romance was Enzo's reluctant falling, his anger towards her, the fact that she got him, the fact that he was considering opening up to a woman and she swindled him. And I love how he wants her to pay for that, how his degradation almost felt like praise because the quagmire of hers just rattling for him. In many respects, she's broken and in need of protection, but she's also a shark in her own right. How much of her spark is a guise and a mask, and how much of it is naturally alluring towards him? Despite himself, he cannot help but be drawn in by her, and that too is humiliating for her at times when she's trying not to bend to her flesh. But I completely bought their romance, and although I could call out some of the twists and turns, I enjoyed the reveals and how far H.D. Carlton took them. There's also a very beautiful way in which Sawyer lets go of her old self in this. There is a pivotal steamy scene within the third act that I loved because it's the first time that she's ever truly been vulnerable. And so I bought their HEA. Enzo really sold this for me, and I absolutely loved it. I'm rating it a 4 stars. 4 stars. Just because of some of the elements that kind of I saw coming. But this was an eerie forced proximity element with a touch her if you die, I'm the only one that can cause her pain type of hero. And I'm obsessed with Enzo. Absolutely obsessed. I think he might be a favorite of the year so far in terms of heroes for me. So I'm gonna wrap it up there and I'll be back when I have more thoughts. I'm not even gonna bury the lead here. I rated Mafia Madman 4.5 stars. This is the third in the series and it features the villain from Mafia Darling. And this is 4 years after that. I mean, Enzo has been lying in wait, plotting his revenge, and the perfect opportunity lands in his lap when he sees Gia walking in a fashion show in Milan. Now, Gia is there studying abroad. She wants to be a fashion designer, not a model, yet she's walking in this show. And when she meets Enzo, the investor, she doesn't recognize him, but he recognizes her as the sister of his enemy, or I'm sorry, the sister-in-law of his enemy. and he plans to capture and torture her just as he was. And the way that he captures her is theatrical. He takes her captive on his big fancy yacht, okay, that he's been recuperating on and plotting on with his family, and he throws her in a cage and tells her how things are gonna go. And what I loved about Gia is that she is not some submissive little lamb, okay? She can clock his attraction towards her, and so she plans on feigning submission and topping from the bottom. And I love when she notes that he may be powerful and cruel, but he's still just a man. And the funny thing about this book for me was that Enzo keeps changing the plan of his revenge plot. First, he's gonna torture her without crossing like any sexual lines. Then it evolves into having her barter for basic needs like water in exchange for sexual favors. And then he sort of has to change it into humiliating her by way of submission, since he has crossed that line. And then in the end, he's orchestrating a way for her to agree to his care and his dominance so that he's not humiliated by his need of her. I just could not with them. And Gia too, like her resolve or her annoyance in having to play this game with him ends up turning into enjoyment. I just loved the tit for tat between them. I also just loved Gia as a captive because she really subverted every means that he tried to use to humiliate her. My favorite being, I will just share this, is when they first get there on the yacht, he takes her clothes away. And what does she do? Butt naked, she's doing yoga because she knows that she's on camera and his men are watching. I just freaking loved her. Like, they were too much. Enzo talking about, if you want water, you need to drink it from my hand. I could not with them. And I ended up buying their freaking connection. And the one thing that I did want from this was some of those like blended familial moments that we know have to take place, being that her sister is married to Fausto. So I wanted a little bit more of that. I thought that the third act was kind of quick, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I like where this series is going, especially being that at the beginning of Mafia Mistress, it is felt that the sisters don't want to end up like their mother. They vowed to never marry Mafia men, and they sort of don't end up like their mother in a way that they never expected because they're actually happy. And so I'm enjoying this series. I cannot wait for the next one. I don't know what she's gonna do, but I'm here for it. I loved this. Next, I read some Michelle Hercules in preparation for San Antonio. Blurry. Hopefully it's not too dang shiny. I don't know. My bad, sorry. This is an age gap student teacher romance, and I really liked the meet cute in this. Alistair is in Tuscany on a bit of business, but he's also there to get a well-needed vacation after a very recent divorce. And Kiara, it's spelled with a CH, so I've been calling her Kiara in my head while reading. She is reluctantly there for her backstabbing cousin's wedding, and her cousin happens to be marrying a man that she stole from her. And so while all that's happening, she's also being cut down to size by her mother's lashing tongue. And so she skips out, and she ends up running across Alistair, who's in a bit of car trouble, and that just spirals into a whirlwind weekend, no strings attached, steamy romance between them. And cut to the gloss really being taken off of that. We're in full reality. I'm talking matte finish of their lives, and they learn that Alistair is Kiara's new teacher. And she's in high school. I believe a freshman because she's only 18. And so it is there that they are mutually pining, and Alistair has to try to stay professional without crossing any boundaries and want her, you know, be pursued by boys her own age. And what I really enjoyed about this was that Kiara really felt like she was the one that was in control, because he just could not get a lasso on himself when it came to her. I also appreciated the communication in this book. I love to see it. They were both very flawed, which did present some challenges in their connection beyond the fact that he was her teacher, yet those challenges were external. Okay, also appreciated that. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I ended up rating a 4. There is some other woman drama when it comes to his ex-wife that does put a twist on the forbidden element as well. So I wasn't expecting that. But I enjoyed this. Now I really want to read, let's see if I can get the name right, because she has this like darker psychopath romance that I'm really interested in now, and I am going to meet her in San Antonio. So, okay, Flirting with Disaster. It's the first in her Filthy Gods duet. It dropped on July 30th. Yes, dark psychopath romance. Yes, please. I'm going to try to get that in before September 15th. And then after reading these two, I got into Cassie Mint's Long Hot Summer novella series because Samantha from Books with Samantha did a video where she was giving us novella author recommendations, you know, a sort of Jessa Kane this or that situation. And this is not my first Cassie Mint, but she did put me onto the series, okay, because I completely missed that. I do feel like the last book is the best, okay? It was my favorite, but we're gonna start with Pool Girl. Pool Girl is about a heroine that is a mermaid at the local aquarium by day, and when she's not swimming there, she's poolside at her condo pool, baiting the caretaker that she hopes wants her as much as she wants him. And the hero in this book is a scarred vet. He has a limp. He is about 25 years older than her, age gap romance as well. And he sees her as like a Disney princess, doesn't imagine that someone as beautiful as she would even be interested in him. And even when it's sort of revealed that she could be, he isn't even good enough to touch her skin, all of that jazz, okay? This was a lot of fun, spicy, quick, you know, insta-lovey, of course, but I did enjoy it. The second in the series is Beach Baby, I believe. It's not, I'm gonna throw up the covers. I believe it was Beach Baby because that was my second favorite within the series, and that is about a caregiver at a nursing home who frequents this secret beach that she finds, and it's just her place of solace. And the developer that follows her there one day and wants to buy it for himself to build on. And for some reason, this novella made a lot of things that I normally do not enjoy work. Like, you know, Insta-love, I can deal with it when I'm in a short quickie like this, but the way that she wrote it was hilarious to me because it's literally love at first sight for the hero, and he knows how crazy that sounds and he doesn't want to push it on the heroine, but the way that he talks about her in his mind was just too good. Like, wanting to adorn her in fabrics. Once she realizes their connection, she'll be sipping on something and he drifts off thinking that she should be drinking the best juices and pulling it out of the fridge from the condo that I'm gonna buy for her. I just love that about him. He was obsessed. And we're dealing with the virgin heroine, which typically isn't my bag, but she's reading this billionaire romance as a part of a book club with the residents at her nursing home, and it's giving her like a play-by-play of the tactics that he's using in this book as she's trying to like beg him and negotiate for him not to buy this beach. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a little kinky too. He's very dominant, and so this one is definitely my second favorite. Then the third one was, I think it's Hotspring's Kingpin. Yes. This is about a mafia boss who is taking a reluctant vacation. He's a bit of a grump. We're dealing with a sunshine heroine that sells ice cream, okay? And she, you know, checks him, okay, for being needlessly short with her. And this follows with an apology that she's sure a man like him has never had to get. And I don't know, some steamy times in a very cramped ice cream truck that gave new meaning to licking a cone. And I liked how this ended. It was actually kind of sweet. So Then the last one within the series, okay, I had to check the name of my favorite one, With the Band. This is an age gap rock star. I'm gonna call it a slow burn for a novella, okay? The heroine is a hitchhiker and she's saved by this mega rock star from getting picked up by this creep. And she doesn't recognize him, which he finds endearing, so she joins them on tour. And their relationship is strictly friendly, you know, to her dismay. He doesn't want to be a 40-year-old rock star pining after this 20-something woman who's become a bright spot in all of their lives. I really enjoyed how she had been on tour with them for a while and how they're both secretly pining, not wanting to mess up the dynamic. I mean, it's really sweet because he wrestles with his feelings while she's burning inside and like wishing that he would see her in a different way. I really thought that this was sweet, and it is a slow burn for a novella, so I definitely recommend it. If you're looking for a quickie, this was a lot of fun, and I think that she ended off this series on a high note, so I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be back when I've read something. Come on, emotive lighting, because that is a lot more akin to how I feel. Okay, so this is going to be a one book clip. I want to talk about it and move on because I'm very disappointed in myself for not DNFing at the point at which I knew it wasn't going to work for me. So I read Penny by Allie Stern. This is a part of her Finders Keepers. I believe it's going to be a duet. It's also a new release for her, which is why I'm so upset with myself, because I always aim to be honest and be mindful that what I'm reading is somebody's work. And so I don't want to read this for filth. That's never my intention, especially during new release week. However, I have to be honest, I am angry. I'm a little raw because I feel like I just read trauma porn that was needless because it wasn't bolstered by the backbone of romance, in my opinion, or at least the markers in romance that I look for. Probably shouldn't be in front of the camera this soon off the page. I'm having the realization after reading this, you know, I'm always questioning like why I'm able to read some of the heavier themes and some of the triggers that I do in light of my own life experiences, which you could probably glean from how I review certain books. And like, it's just like clear to me now. I'm able to read those because of the romance, okay? Pam Godwin would never do this to me. She would never do this to me. Oh my gosh. I apologize. I could just like feel myself crescendoing. So hopefully I can like return back to center as I give you the nuts and bolts in terms of like the tropes and like the setup, okay, of this book, and just key you in as to why I'm angry. But let's start out with Captor Captive, okay? I love Captor Captive romances. I love when it's done well, and for me that means the role reversal and shift that happens where the captor is ensnared by their feelings for the captive. And I just love that eclipse moment within romance. That's why I picked them up, and that's why I picked this up. I've also read a lot of romances that are darker and centered around human trafficking, okay? Pam Godwin's Deliver series being the best I have ever read to date, okay? In terms of dark romance series ever, in general. The best, I'm sorry. And so, I thought this would work for me. I really did. I really did. And at the point that it wasn't, I should have put it down so I wasn't in this position to have to talk about it, you know? But I do. And so this is really about a heroine who has not only lost her sole source of income that's really funding her artistry, she survived an apartment fire where she lost everything. She's now vagrant, she's on the streets, and she is picked up by Carter, who is a part of the flesh trade, and he is out hunting because he needs to bring someone that can get him back into his father's good graces because he made a very grave error. And his father's the type of crime boss that would cap his own sons if they stepped out of line. So the stakes are really high for him. And so he picks her up, captures her and breaks her into the flesh trade. And that's really what this is about. And just very quickly, I will say, we learn that his brother is also a part of this organization. He's really the buttoned up, responsible one, and his tactic for breaking women is very different than Carter's. I did not find them to be likable. I could not get behind heroes that bought into the ideology that women are to be commodified, that they are mere products to be used. I did not enjoy their willing, woeful ignorance and sort of like pompous in their privilege that never waned. And when it's revealed that they don't want to be a part of the business, that it's been thrust upon them, the only reason why they want to be free of it is because of how they are chained, not able to see the harms done against all of the victims that lay in their wake. And the only feelings that I got from them in terms of for the heroine was that she's not like other captives and she's a fun hole to be in because she isn't whimpering or disruptive during the experience. I'm telling you, that's all I got, especially from Carter's brother, which I don't even remember his name, I'm sorry. So I'm just gonna, use that moniker as a placeholder. I apologize. But I was not buying his allure and draw towards her because he wasn't the one that captured her. Carter was. And so this whole she's a beauty, she's intriguing, okay, whatever. It was very surface and topical. And what did keep me reading was the fact that Carter was her captor, and so a lot of her behaviors are counter to what he's used to, and I believed, he was genuinely curious about her background and how she came to be in the situation that she was. And so, he's talking about her loss of choice, and I thought, okay, I'm calm now. You're giving me something. Yet that was never developed upon or taken any further. I also kept reading because of the heroine's tactic in this. She knows that she's been taken. She knows that she must lean in and give in, and also sort of speak to Carter's brokenness because she too shares it, and she feels like she can appeal to him in that way. So she will allow her body to be taken because that choice has been robbed from her, but she plans on keeping her pleasure for herself and sort of playing this sort of chess game. That's what I was reading for. That's, really what kind of gripped me and made me continue reading. Also her ability to see the difference between them, stating that, Carter, although a monster, showed her his fangs from the very beginning, where his brother was a sly wolf about it, calculating within his mind while smiling her face. And she could read that. That was very legible to her. So I enjoyed the heroine. There wasn't one gesture, okay, that Carter gave me that led me to believe that tactic that she started out with was thwarted by feelings. Not one did I buy her physiological response to what he was doing to her non-consensually. Yeah, but feelings, no, I wasn't buying it. Like I said, the same with his brother. And what really pissed me off in this book was a very violent and heinous assault scene that is done in front of the heroine as a means of threat and warning, carried out by their father. And part of me wants to say that it wasn't gratuitously placed. I know why it was there. It was there to introduce me to the ruthlessness of the boss that we are dealing with. Noted, okay? I understood where their thoughts and feelings about women came from. got it, understand it, doesn't mean that I have to like it, because that scene did not feel purposeful, because it wasn't used to develop the romance at all. I was so angry that I'm just going to get into spoilers here. Okay, so if you don't want to know anything, I do want to say, just because this didn't work for me doesn't mean that it can't work for you. I'm getting into spoilers. It's just happening because I have to explain why I didn't like this. Okay, coming off the heels of that freaking scene, I did not believe, okay, that the heroine is now ready and willing to have sex with both of the brothers at the same time and she's enjoying it. Please! No, wasn't buying it. Did not like that coming off of the heels of that scene, the hero gives up on pursuing her in whatever kind of way she was trying to get me to believe was happening by chipping and choosing to send her off to the monster that carried that violent act out. That really pissed me off. I'm like, where is the romance? What is happening? I am not buying this. And it pissed me off because I felt like I was drugged through something like that without the swoon, without an HEA. This ends on a cliffhanger. I will give her the fact that there is a gesture in the end that gives us some hope to her freedom. But then she follows it up with a trigger warning for suicide attempt by way of overdose. And then there's a cliffhanger. Like, what? I couldn't help but think Pam Godwin would never do this to me. She would never make me read something like this without giving me an HEA. Oh my gosh. Her Deliver series is the best that I have ever read because all of the trauma and the pain of her character somehow makes sense because it leads them to their counterpart. Okay, it's what brings them to their person. And then, just as a caveat, is probably the best redemption arc I have ever read because he spends the course of this series showing up, making up, and atoning for harms done. It's absolutely beautiful. Get into it if you can handle the heaviness, okay? I mean, she takes you through the ills of man, the most depraved crimes against humanity, and she will give you the light. And so I just can't trust anybody to take me through traumatic events like this and, give me what I need to make it make sense, to make it feel like it's worth it. I think the fact that this ended on a cliffhanger wouldn't have been the choice that I would make. Is it a video of mine if the camera doesn't cut off in the middle of my sentence? I am so sorry. I'm going to get that all the way together. It's probably best that it happened because I definitely was vibrating there on a crescendo. I'm just going to say that this didn't work for me because some of the heavier themes and traumatic moments did not feel purposeful to me. I didn't get the light that I needed. And light just means I want to feel like they're falling in love against the odds. And this felt like they were getting beaten up by them. And so that cliffhanger, after everything I had read, just made me feel heavy and I wasn't enjoyable to read. That's why this didn't work for me. Like I've said, it could work for you. And I'm just upset and feel a little raw, okay, after that read. And so I am going to leave it there. I apologize if this was, a little spicy, but those are the elements that just really, made me frustrated while reading this. And so I'm going to jump into something else that's been highly anticipated for me. It's going to be some M.M age gap, daddy kink realness. And I always love that. So I just need it like tonight. Now. So I'm going to start that and I'll be back after I've read a couple. Okay, so I finished The Weight of Your Wishes by Bailey Nicole. I needed that. I will say that the dynamic in this one is kind of different. I mean, it definitely is an age gap. I'm not sure how forbidden though. And you're probably going to be thinking like, really, Tiffany? But once I break it down, maybe you'll agree. Because Hendrix is our younger hero. He's also troubled, emotionally neglected, and he is the son of Grant's best friend. Now, Hendrix's mom and Grant once dated, but she left Grant, skipped their small town, and when she returned, she was pregnant. So at the beginning of this book, although Grant and her aren't together anymore, he sort of takes on the responsibility of helping raise Hendrix. And it is sort of implied, because there is a 21-year-old time jump in this, it's implied that Grant's presence started to kind of dwindle away as Hendrix got older. I mean, he still made it for the big stuff, graduations, birthdays, and the like, but he believed his friend's mental health was improving, and so he took a back seat in Hendrix's life. Now, he's stepping in as an uncle when this book starts after the, jump into the future, because Hendrix's mother doesn't really know what to do with him. He almost died due to drunk driving. He's not taking his college courses seriously, so she wants him to, stay with Grant for the summer. And that's kind of like the best and worst thing to Hendrix, being that Grant is really responsible for Hendrix's spy awakening. And so he wants to spend time with him, but also doesn't know how he's going to handle the temptation of being in close quarters with him. Now, Grant kind of gets Hendrix to activate himself in this small community. He has him get a job at the bar that he owns, help around town. I really felt like he gave him a sense of purpose and routine, and he does just showcase the care that he's never received from his mother. I really enjoy how Hendrix grew because of his time with Grant, and he just becomes eager to please him and make him proud. And I will say I thoroughly enjoyed the third act. The swoon in that was just luscious. However, there were a few beats that I feel like were missed, at least for me, in terms of what I like to see, because it didn't really feel like there was mutual pining in this book. When we're getting Grant's perspective, I never really was privy to his romantic feelings for Hendrix, and it seems to escalate fairly quickly, especially being that at the beginning of this book, Grant is in a relationship with the woman that Hendrix believes he could never be. And so he's a fierce ally within his small town, but he's also presumably straight. And so I wish I would have gotten more on his attraction to Hendrix, some of his feelings towards him. That doesn't really come out until it's revealed to Grant that Hendrix feels the way that he does. And so from there, things quickly escalate into him being willing to engage in the daddy kink that we are seeing. And I wish there was more time spent on that eclipse, between viewing Hendrix as his best friend's son that he's looking after, to I can't believe I ever lived my life without you, and I don't ever want you to leave. Like, I just wanted more time spent on that shift, because I never felt privy to any sort of undercurrent that authorized that change. So, I loved the steam within this. I loved the sneaking around. And again, I loved the third act declarations and swoon, but it did feel like it came out of nowhere on the part of Grant. So I did rate this a 3. Quickly after that, I jumped into, I think it's called, let me get it right here, because I got this recommendation from McKay, and this is a quickie, spicy novella. I'm like clicking around here. First Dirty Dates by Harley Laroux. You see the title before I did. But this was like top tier smut, I love her moniker of like no plot, just hot, because this was exactly that. But I found it to be delectable. The heroine's been pining for the hero for like 4 years, and on this day she's finally gonna go on a date with him, and it is there that she learns that he is aware of her secret Twitter, where she posts her kinky fantasies, and he comes up with a delicious and dominant way to make some of those fantasies come alive when they are together in this arcade. And so I found this to be steamy fun. I really enjoyed it. There's a Halloween one that I want to read that I don't think I'm going to wait till October to get to. I mean, it's already spooky season up at my house, so I'll probably get into that next. I am currently in the middle of The Proof of Seduction by Courtney Milan for the Rake Appreciation Society, so I will probably close this video out right here just so that it doesn't get too long and I can get it edited and up for you. So I plan to follow this up with an end of the month wrap up, filling you in on everything else that I've been reading, and also some stats, my favorites, you know, we'll get into it. But I want to thank you for joining me. I hope you can consider subscribing and sticking around, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.